We're delighted to welcome the Mithras Trio. They gave us a wonderful live recital last November, and it seems an eternity ago now, doesn't it? I'm going to introduce them. I'm going to try and find each of them and spotlight them as we go along. So first, Ionel Manciu. You may remember he gave us a solo recital about a year ago, which was fantastic. Then we'll go to Leo Popplewell, cello. Leo hasn't given us a solo recital yet, but we're very much hoping that we'll be able to organize this before too long. And the third, but by no means last member of the group, Dominic Degavino. Dominic is scheduled to give a recital in November, but sadly we can't be optimistic that things will have progressed to the point where we can all be together. In that case, we will definitely reschedule this for as soon as we can. So, last time I invited you to imagine that you were in our shul building. This time, I'm asking you to imagine that you're in Norway, specifically in Trondheim. Last September, our guests entered the Trondheim International Chamber Music Festival and they won it, which was an amazing achievement and something that made us feel really proud at having had the chance to hear them play for us so soon after that triumph. One of the works that they played in their journey to the final was Brahms' third piano trio in C minor, and we're going to see a video of that performance. However, before that, we're going to start with a live performance by Leo of the prelude from Bach's Sixth Suite in D major for solo cello.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can all hear me. To kick off this afternoon's recital, I'm going to play a prelude. It's my favourite prelude from the Six Suites by J.S. Bach, the prelude from his Sixth Suite in D major. This suite as a whole is the grandest in scale and also in range. It was written for an instrument which would have had an extra string a fifth above my top one. So played on a modern cello, I spent a lot of time, particularly in this prelude, right up at the top of the cello. It's also the danciest of all the preludes. Typically in a suite you'd have a prelude which sets the atmosphere and then you'd have a sequence of 5 dance movements. But in this suite, for me, this is the danciest of all of them. It's a rollicking, barnstorming, joyous prelude full of life, and I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you very much indeed. And we're now going over to the Brahms, and I'm going to hand over to Dominic, who will introduce it, and then David Conn will start it going. So. Dominic is there.
Hopefully you can all hear me. It's working fine. So yes, I'm just going to say a few words about Brahms's third piano trio, which we're about to hear. He wrote it in 1886. It was the summer he was in a sort of summer retreat in Switzerland. And he'd already written the second cello sonata and the second violin sonata in the same summer. So he was really on a roll of sort of violin, cello, and piano music, as it was. It's a very, very concentrated and concise work. It's probably just over half the length of his first piano trio. It's about 20 minutes long, which is probably one of the shortest 4-movement piano trios in the entire repertoire. The first movement is a very dark and passionate, turbulent work. The second movement is a sort of rather mysterious scherzo, which is really kept under wraps. It was one of Clara Schumann's favorites of Brahms's works she wrote in her diary. The third movement sort of transitions between the violin and cello alone, and then the piano answering them, and together those two sides have a conversation really throughout the movement. And then the work finishes with a very lively fourth movement, which is mostly again quite dark, and just at the very end, for the last minute or so, begins to see a bit of hope and turns to C major. So Brahms's third piano trio.
we're now going to go live to Ionel, and he is going to introduce and play some more Bach, the Gavotte en Rondo from the third partita in E major for solo violin. So I will unmute Ionel, and over to you.
Hello, good afternoon everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. In case you haven't gathered from the video that we've been watching, I'm the violinist of the Mithras Piano Trio, and on behalf of the Mithras Piano Trio we would like to thank the new North London Synagogue for organizing this beautiful concert series, the Intermezzo at Home concert series, and of course to thank them for inviting us, for being part of this concert series. And just as a little treat, I would like to play the Gavotte from the third partita in E major, since it's so sunny and beautiful outside. The Gavotte, in case you didn't know, it's a dance, a folk dance, which originated in France. And this particular Gavotte is in a form of a rondo, which means that we have a recurring theme which comes back time and time again, but there are like short little episodes in between. So this is the Gavotte en Rondo by Johann Sebastian Bach from the third partita in E major. I hope you'll enjoy it.
Bravo.
That's great. Thank you so much. Okay, so now, finally in our program, some solo piano. Um, because Dominic was concerned about the strength of his internet connection, he's recorded his piece. It's the Prelude number 8 from the first book of the Debussy Preludes, La Serenade Interrompue, and I'm going to just spotlight him, invite him to introduce it, and then David will play the violin, play the video.
Yes, thank you, Richard. For various technical reasons, it wasn't possible to play live. So here's a little video that I made earlier, especially for all of you. It's a funny little piece. It's from the first book of Debussy's Preludes. It's one of his Spanish-inspired compositions. And I'd like you to picture a little scene. There's a man playing a guitar out on the street, and he's trying to serenade his lover standing on a balcony above. But unfortunately, things keep happening which put him off. So whether it's someone drops a lot of pans, or goods fall out of a cart going past, or a little marching kind of band walking past, everything is sort of getting in his way, and he gets increasingly frustrated that he can't really deliver his serenade properly. And in the end, he gives up and walks off. So, La Serenade Interrompue.
The best way of getting a real round of applause, but never mind. We're now going to spend a few minutes putting some questions to our performers, and I will unmute them. And if you set your screen to speaker view, hopefully you will see each of them as they respond. So let's unmute Ionel. Leo. And Dominic. Okay, so we've had questions come up about effectively this sort of rather bizarre experience, and so the first question for whichever of you wants to pick it up and answer: how does it feel to be making music to an audience that you can't see, hear, or even smell?
Well, can I answer first?
Yeah, sure.
I was fortunate enough, I don't know whether you saw, to have all of my family in the room, and I could definitely smell them. But it's very strange. It sort of feels very isolated.
Does it affect the way you play?
Probably, yeah. And also playing in a small space, I think, as much as anything.
Yeah. Dominic, Ionel, any thoughts on that?
Well, I actually quite enjoyed the experience, I must say. Even though I couldn't see the audience, I could somehow, I don't know whether it's because of the internet connection or maybe my Wi-Fi modem has got something special, but I could feel the connection between my music making and the audience that was watching this stream today.
I think that's a really lovely thing to
Quite
say, and
enjoyable.
I think our audience will appreciate you saying that. Thank you. Dominic, any feel, because you weren't performing live, but you're part of the experience.
Yes, and I have to say it's partly been on for me the other way around, because normally I can't see any of the audience while I'm playing. Um, Soloists might be facing them, but as a pianist, you really can't see at all. So actually seeing people's reactions is quite odd, watching this. So.
And how does it feel to be watching the video of the Brahms? I expect you've probably seen it a few times, but are you able to sit back and relax and enjoy it, or are you all too conscious of things that perhaps you might have wanted to do differently, or whatever?
I personally wasn't conscious. I was actually thoroughly enjoying the performance. I don't know why, but somehow I just tried to remember what I felt in that particular moment while I was on stage and playing, and then all those emotions just went through my whole body.
Maybe you enjoyed it because it was such a good performance.
I don't know. That's for you to judge. That's for you to judge.
We did. We thought it
We as
was.
performance don't
I
know.
loved watching it because one of the things I've missed most about this lockdown is playing with everybody else, particularly these guys, and it kind of brought a nice sense of nostalgia and yeah, I think it's seeing the quality of it is now tinted by not having played together for so long that I think, wow, weren't we amazing a year ago? What's gone wrong?
Yeah. Before we came on air, I was saying that I loved the moment near the beginning, in the first movement, when Ionel smiles as the big tune swells in. I thought that was really sweet. Dominic, anything on that?
I actually sort of felt the same as Leo. Maybe I hadn't listened to that recording probably since the autumn, certainly October or something. So it was, I found myself hearing all sorts of things which I didn't really remember us doing when we played that piece. So it was quite nice, actually.
Good. Well, that's good. Do you want to say something briefly about your experience in taking part in that festival and winning it?
For sure.
It was a really fun week. It was the first time that we've been sort of really on tour and in an intensive way. And Ionel and I were sharing a double bed in a hotel in Trondheim, and we spent the whole week there rehearsing sort of for about half the day, walking around the city. We each had a host. Each group was allocated a host family who would show us around, which was really nice. And even the weeks up to it in preparation was quite a. It was the first time that I've prepared like that for a big competition, and I really enjoyed the thoroughness of getting to grips with all of the repertoire.
And you played quite a wide repertoire, didn't you? You had the Beethoven, you had the Brahms, you had Shostakovich. Quite a challenge.
Yeah, lots of stuff to learn.
And then you played the Shostakovich for us marvelously. I think that sticks in our minds. Would any of the others like to come in on this? Ionel, Dominic?
What I would like to say is, yeah, just as Leo said, I mean, we really enjoyed preparing for this competition, even though one of the pieces, we won't tell you which one, was we performed it for the very first time on stage in Trondheim, which was quite scary. But I think the fact that we won just shows maybe our skill
Yeah.
in performing something for the very first time at a very high level. So I don't know, but apart from that, what I don't know what else to say.
Okay, that's lovely. Dominic, anything just to finish off?
The only other thought I'd have is that I remember eating a lot of food that week. We spent half our day rehearsing, as Leo said, and I think we spent the other half of our day in the hotel buffet. So,
Okay, that's a pleasure we're not going to get for some time, isn't it? Okay, guys, thank you very much for that, and thank you for being with us. Just a few announcements before we close. We said last time our main reason for this adventure was to provide you with entertainment and stimulation, but we also wanted to provide support for the performers deprived of their lifeblood of performing and, critically, from earning a living through music. We're paying a small fee from our reserves, but we do invite you to help them by making small donations at their GoFundMe page. And I'll put the link up. It was in the email that went out, and I'll put the link up for a few minutes at the end. You were extraordinarily generous to Khrushchev last time, but bear in mind, this time, whatever you feel able to give is going to be shared 3 ways. For those of you who want to support other performers, as I mentioned last time, there's the Concordia Foundation Vital Fund, and I'll put that link up. Our next concert, Thursday the 11th of June, our guest will be the pianist John Paul Ekin, who many of you will remember, he performed with Timotei Popplewell in their piano and cello recital in April last year. That program will include Beethoven, Schubert, and a list, so pop it in your diaries. It'll be a live recital from John's home. And just to mention, he's been giving a series of live concerts on Sunday afternoons in aid of an NHS charity. And again, you can find that on Facebook and YouTube. Lastly, we invite feedback. Please email Intermezzo or add anything you'd like to say, complimentary or otherwise, on the chat stream, and we'll pick that up. And I just want to do a little plug for Leo, just to encourage you to go and have a look at his Facebook page. I won't tell you what's there, but there's some quite extraordinary stuff. You should go there and enjoy it. Okay, that's the end of the concert. We look forward to seeing you on the 11th of June. In the meantime, we hope you stay safe and well. I'll leave it open for a few minutes so you can find the links and you can add thoughts on the chat, and then I'll end the session. And thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.